But Caitlin Clark did officially put out a statement on JuJu Watkins on her Twitter X feed, and
Caitlin Clark is once again under fire, this time for the unthinkable, offering support to an injured opponent. Her simple, well-intended social media post about JuJu Watkins has sparked an all-out frenzy, with critics nitpicking every word and questioning her true intentions. The fact that a message of encouragement could stir up so much outrage says a lot about the toxic side of the sports world. Who would have thought that showing sportsmanship could turn into a controversy? Yet, here we are, watching Clark get dragged simply for doing the right thing.
Of course, last night during March Madness against Mississippi State, JuJu Watkins suffered a horrific injury. Did a video on it this morning. Obviously, we're all pulling for her, all right, to get better. I haven't seen any Caitlin Clark fans talking negatively about JuJu Watkins and that injury or wishing it on her or anything like that. I wish I could say the same for fans of the original WNBA fans when it comes to you-know-who, Caitlin Clark. And in fact, I think one of them made a live stream about Caitlin's knee or something like that.
Let's break down this absolutely wild situation unfolding before our eyes. Last night during March Madness, USC star JuJu Watkins suffered a brutal injury in their game against Mississippi State. It was the kind of heartbreaking moment that should have united basketball fans in support of a young star facing adversity. And at first, that's exactly what happened. Caitlin Clark, who has consistently shown nothing but class, took to social media to send a simple, heartfelt message. Sending all my thoughts and prayers to JuJu. Kid will come back stronger than ever. She even added a red heart emoji. That's it. A straightforward, supportive gesture from one athlete to another. In any normal world, this would be seen for what it is. Just a kind message. But when it comes to anything involving Caitlin Clark, logic goes right out the window. Instead of appreciating the support, her critics found yet another reason to attack her. The madness started almost instantly. Clark's post racked up over 1.2 million views, with many showing love and support. But then came the outrage, all centered around one word: kid. Yep, you heard that right. People are furious that Clark referred to Watkins as kid, not the well wishes, not the encouragement, just that one word. One angry commenter ranted, "Kid? Why are you calling her a kid? You're only 3 years apart." Another added, "You're not a 20-year veteran. Check yourself." And then came the wildest take of them all, someone claiming that calling a person kid carries some kind of deep offensive meaning. At this point, it's beyond ridiculous. A simple message of encouragement has somehow turned into a controversy, proving once again that no matter what Caitlin Clark does, certain people will find a way to twist it against her.
Any reason to try to bring this young lady down. I guess they're jealous. I don't know what it is. Well, yeah, I do. All right. For a lot of them, it's her skin color and her sexual preference. I hate to say that. That is part of this.
Just think about this for a second. Caitlin Clark simply shows support for an injured player, and somehow people twist it into claims of disrespect, condescension, and even racial undertones. It's honestly mind-blowing. Some folks are out here actively looking for something to be offended by, creating drama out of absolutely nothing.
One thing I'm going to tell you about the old WNBA fans or the new WNBA fans that are activists that have joined for the culture war, because there's two separate factions. There's the old ones that, been around and just laboring and nothing was ever popping until Caitlin came along.
The way some people instantly dragged race into this situation is pretty revealing. One commenter even said, "I think JuJu will have a problem with you calling her kid," despite having zero proof that Watkins herself was even remotely offended. They're creating drama out of thin air, putting words in her mouth just to push their own narrative. And the timing? Absolutely disgraceful. Instead of focusing on Watkins' recovery from a serious injury, these so-called fans are using her situation as an excuse to take cheap shots at Clark. It's not just ridiculous, ridiculous. It's disrespectful to both players. Let's set the record straight. In sports, the word kid is used all the time as a term of endearment, not an insult. Coaches, teammates, and even opponents say it across all levels, races, and sports. There was nothing condescending about Clark's message. She wasn't talking down to Watkins, she was simply offering support. But this is nothing new. Since Clark stepped into the spotlight, every single thing she says or does gets picked apart, twisted, and blown out of proportion. Some people are clearly determined to find any excuse to attack her, even when she's doing something as harmless as sending well wishes. The mental gymnastics to turn a supportive post into a controversy? Honestly, it deserves an Olympic medal. And let's not ignore the real issue here. Some of this hate isn't about basketball at all. As one commenter bluntly pointed out, certain critics have a problem with Clark's race and sexuality. And while that might be uncomfortable to admit, there's truth to it. Clark represents something that challenges parts of the existing WNBA fan base. And instead of acknowledging her impact on the game, they look for any reason to tear her down. This isn't a new pattern. From the moment Clark started breaking records and bringing more eyes to women's basketball, a loud minority has been treating her success like a personal offense. The same people who claim to fight for women's sports are often the first to attack the very player who's putting the game on the map like never before. And the biggest irony, if the roles were reversed, if Watkins had called Clark kid in a supportive message, nobody would have cared. Not one of these critics would have said a word. Their outrage is selective and their bias is painfully obvious. The double standard couldn't be clearer. Clark is constantly held to an unrealistic standard where even her most harmless supportive gestures are twisted into something negative. Meanwhile, when she's actually on the receiving end of unsportsmanlike behavior, it's either ignored or even celebrated. Let's not forget what happened last season. Clark was physically targeted during games, taking unnecessary hits that went far beyond regular competition. And where were these same critics then? Silent, or worse, defending it as just part of the game. The hypocrisy is unreal. What makes this even more frustrating is how it completely shifts the focus away from what actually matters: Watkins' injury and her recovery. Instead of rallying behind a talented athlete facing adversity, these critics are hijacking the conversation just to push their anti-Clark agenda. And let's be clear, this isn't about standing up for Watkins. There's zero indication that she even took offense to Clark's message. This is pure exploitation, using Watkins' injury as an excuse to attack Clark. That's not advocacy. That's just pathetic. And here's the worst part. Clark is in a lose-lose situation. If she had stayed quiet, these same people would have accused her of being cold or indifferent. But because she did show support, they're nitpicking every single word she used, desperate to find something offensive. No matter what she does, this group of critics is determined to make her the villain. The level of scrutiny Clark faces is completely over the top. Every word she says, every post she makes, even the smallest expression on her face, it all gets dissected, misinterpreted, and turned into yet another controversy. Imagine dealing with that every single day, knowing that even your kindest gestures will be weaponized against you. That kind of pressure is exhausting. And let's be real, this isn't just unfair to Clark, it's hurting women's basketball as a whole. The WNBA is experiencing record-breaking growth with more eyes on the game than ever before. And a huge part of that? Caitlin Clark. Instead of tearing down one of the biggest reasons for this surge in attention, maybe it's time to actually appreciate what she's doing for the sport. The excitement around Caitlin Clark is undeniable, yet instead of celebrating this moment, some longtime fans and even players seem more resentful than supportive. Rather than embracing the growing attention on women's basketball, they're creating an unwelcoming and hostile environment. Think about the message this sends to young fans who are just now discovering the sport because of Clark. They tune in, eager to watch this rising star, only to be met with constant negativity, harsh criticism, and unnecessary drama. How many of these potential lifelong supporters are being pushed away by this toxic culture? The upcoming WNBA season should be a celebration of elite talent, featuring both Clark and JuJu Watkins once she recovers. Instead, negativity is casting a shadow over what should be one of the most exciting times in the league's history. And the worst part? The ones fueling this negativity are the same people who claim to love the sport. They're doing more harm than good. Let's be honest, this isn't about Clark using the word kid. It's not about disrespect. It's about a group of fans who feel threatened by Clark's rapid rise and are desperately looking for reasons to discredit her. This is pure gatekeeping, an attempt to keep their league from being changed by an influx of new fans they don't approve of. The irony? These so-called protectors of women's basketball are actually hurting it more than Clark ever could. Their toxic attitude is driving away new fans and making the league seem unwelcoming at a time when it should be thriving. Instead of lifting the sport up, they're dragging it down. And what kind of message does this send to young athletes considering a future in the WNBA? That you'll be celebrated unless you become too popular, at which point you'll be torn apart, have your every move scrutinized, and be criticized no matter what you do. That's not exactly an appealing environment for top talent choosing where to play professionally. The WNBA's silence on this growing problem is also becoming a concern. By not addressing the toxic behavior surrounding its biggest new star, the league is allowing a loud minority to dominate the conversation. Instead of capitalizing on the unprecedented attention Clark is bringing, they're letting the negativity fester unchecked. And it's not just social media. Entire YouTube channels and podcasts have popped up, dedicated almost exclusively to nitpicking Clark's every word and action, twisting them into controversy for clicks and engagement. This isn't honest criticism, it's an industry built on tearing her down. What's even more frustrating is that Clark and Watkins could form one of the greatest rivalries in women's basketball, one that could drive interest and elevate the sport for years to come. But instead of embracing this potential, these critics are forcing unnecessary division between them based on nothing but their own biases. Sadly, this kind of treatment isn't new for female athletes who break barriers. From Billie Jean King to Serena Williams, history has shown that women who change the game and bring unprecedented attention to their sport often face resistance. Clark is just the latest example, but make no mistake, no amount of backlash can stop her impact on the game. This kind of backlash isn't new. It's a pattern we've seen time and time again. Whenever a fresh talent shakes up the game, there's always resistance from established fans and players who feel threatened by the change, even when it's ultimately good for the sport. Let's be completely clear, Caitlin Clark has shown nothing but respect for her fellow athletes, including JuJu Watkins. She's consistently displayed sportsmanship, composure under pressure, and a deep love for basketball. The narrative being pushed by her critics doesn't align with reality. It's a fabricated excuse to justify their already existing dislike. With the WNBA season on the horizon, this situation is a preview of what Clark will likely endure. The physical targeting she dealt with in college, that's almost guaranteed to continue in the pros, probably with even more intensity. And if this controversy over a simple message of support is any sign, the off-court attacks will be just as relentless. What's even more concerning is how this might impact Clark's natural energy and passion on the court. Her raw emotions and competitive fire are part of what make her such an exciting player to watch. But if she starts to feel like every reaction, every celebration, and every word will be twisted against her, she might begin holding back. That wouldn't just be a loss for Clark, it would be a loss for basketball as a whole. And really, what do these critics even want from her? She's brought record-breaking attention to women's basketball, carried herself with class, and supported her fellow athletes, including Watkins. Yet, no matter what she does, it never seems to be enough. The truth is, nothing will ever be enough, because the real issue isn't what Clark has done, but what she represents. She shattered records, packed arenas, and changed the entire conversation around women's basketball. And for those who are comfortable with the way things used to be, that's a problem. But instead of tearing her down, we should be lifting up both Clark and Watkins. These two young stars are the future of the game, each bringing their own style, talent, and passion to the court. Their journeys could elevate women's basketball to a whole new level, bringing in more fans and recognition than ever before. At the end of the day, this sport is bigger than petty debates and unnecessary drama. It's about celebrating talent, growth, and the next generation of stars. And Clark and Watkins are leading the way. A small but loud group is doing everything they can to create drama where none exists. The outrage over Clark using the word kid is so absurd that it would be funny if it didn't point to a much bigger issue. When people are this determined to be offended, there's literally nothing Clark could say that wouldn't be twisted against her. She could put out the most carefully worded, neutral statement possible, and these same critics would still find a way to attack her for it. At this point, what Clark is dealing with isn't just criticism, it's targeted harassment. This isn't about holding an athlete accountable, it's a deliberate effort to tear down a young woman who has achieved incredible success through sheer hard work, talent, and dedication. And the worst worst part, it's all happening in real time, with almost no pushback from those who have the power to stop it. With the WNBA season fast approaching, it's time to take a serious look at how this toxic environment is affecting the league. Clark's arrival presents an incredible opportunity to bring women's basketball to new levels of popularity and recognition. But if this negativity is allowed to continue unchecked, that momentum could be lost. And let's be real, the people trying to twist Clark's words into something negative are exposing far more about themselves than they are about her. The fact that they're willing to take a message of encouragement and turn it into something malicious says everything about their own intentions and character. But fans aren't blind to it. More and more people are recognizing the unfair treatment Clark is facing and are pushing back against it. That's why it's so important for those with influence in women's basketball to step up. If we want to grow this sport and create a more positive environment, we have to actively reject this toxicity. The basketball community has a choice. Let a handful of bitter voices ruin what should be an exciting new era, or stand together in support of all the talented athletes bringing attention to the game. The right choice is obvious, but making it happen will take all of us. If you're tired of seeing players like Clark unfairly attacked, now's the time to speak up. Hit that subscribe button and smash that like to help spread this message. And let me know in the comments, how can we create a better, more positive space for all athletes? Your voice matters, and together we can drown out the negativity and push women's basketball forward.